I am co-founder of the Bangladeshi-American Women's Development Initiative. We're a community initiative working to address gaps in access for Bangladeshi-American women in Paterson, New Jersey, but women reach out to us throughout the state and we do help them. And we're also working to create a space of empowerment and sisterhood for our community and provide also some cultural competency services as well. We're not a nonprofit. We have no funding. Our resources are ourselves. We're all young women and women from our community who are on a board, and we do rapid response, we work on different issues that impact our community, and also one of the things we do work on is cultural exchange, and to kind of show the Bengali culture in Paterson. So for example, in Paterson is one of the biggest Bangladeshi communities in the country, and it's the biggest one in New Jersey. It's one of the biggest ones in the country. And one of the things that we noticed is that, this community has been here since the 60s at least, and it's been a big part of the Paterson community, but it was very insulated. You didn't see a lot of events kind of for the bigger community. We don't have there's a Peruvian Day Parade. There is no Bengali Day Parade or Bengali Parade. And so we were part of the cohort last year for a creative Paterson. And for smaller groups, I think it's an even more important resource because we don't have an office, we don't have a big staff, and for us, our connections are paramount. They're so important. Connections we make, the networking, the relationship building is how we get things done in our group. And so what was wonderful about Creative Paterson was that so many stakeholders were in one place in the city, organizations, leaders, and just being able for them to know we exist, or they've heard of us but didn't meet anybody from our group, and for us to know they exist and to have a point person to reach out to was extremely valuable. And and it was similar to this, but one of the people in the groups we were running, or that I met, was Christina Deutsch. She's with the Paterson Museum of New Jersey. Now the Paterson Museum is amazing. It's free. It's open to the public. And she was so thrilled when she met me. She said, "I want to do some cultural programming at my museum." And I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome." But when you do these big networking things, you're like, you don't know what's going to happen. You might lose an email. Someone emails you, you don't get coffee. It's kind of like into the ether, right? But we met her, and I remember that, and I had one of my other board members was there, and she was like, "That's amazing. We should, if they want to do it, they're interested, we should do something." But we're like, "But what?" Right? We weren't really sure. Now, every year there's an International Mother's Day event. Mother's Day holiday. The United Nations, an official UN holiday, and it celebrates all mother tongues. So that's indigenous languages, every language around the world. But it started because of the Bangladeshi language movement in Bangladesh, where some students actually ended up being killed because they were standing up for the right to their language. And one of the reasons the Bangladesh country went to war and ended up winning that war was to preserve the Bengali language. And so it's very meaningful, a cultural aspect, our language to our people. And that movement ended up, the UN recognized it, and then they ended up having this International Mother Day event for the world. But it really started with activism of Bangladeshi students. And so we wanted it's a big thing in our communities. We invite our communities for food and things like that, but it's not something we usually celebrate with everybody else. So we wanted to do that. We checked in to make sure that no other community groups were doing an event like that, and that was in the clear, and I reached out to the museum, and they thought it was a great idea. Now, having the museum as a partner gave us a free space. So one of the challenges we had is we're not at 501c3, so we don't have any funding. So we had, everything we do is just from our own resources, right? Or through partnerships. So the museum, by giving us a space, we got a free space, which all of you know is huge. And then I work for an organization called Moms Rising, which empowers mothers and families, and they were willing to sponsor the food. So that covered $500 for food. And I told the museum, "What's your vision?" I'm like, "Well, we want to do a community art exhibit because it's the museum and we don't want to waste this opportunity. We want to do a performance and panel about International Mother Language Day, so a performance panel and a community art exhibit." They're like, "You're crazy. That's you're not going to be able to." It's a lot. I'm like, "Well, we're going to do it anyway because we agreed on it." So that we had 3 weeks lead time, but what I was telling the other group is the museum itself was such an incredible resource for us because they've been in the community for a while, and they access sectors of the community that are very different, and they're kind of more of a mainstream organization, not as much of this specific cultural entity, right? That what we're working on. And the museum actually introduced me to a woman named Amber Huck, who had worked at the museum a little bit, and she was this incredible Bangladeshi woman who's an activist in the community, and I'd never heard of her. So as soon as we connected, she told me, oh, that they had an event a year ago in the museum where 100 people came out. Now, getting Bangladeshi people out for an event is like pulling teeth. Like we beg our mothers and cousins to come to our meetings, right? So when I heard that you were able to get people in, that was like from this woman was able to get people in, that was like a huge resource for us. And so she started working with us on this event, and she herself was a resource, had amazing community connections. Another challenge was, well, how do we have enough? We're a small cohort of women. How do we get enough people power to help at this event? And she reached out to NGIT Bengali Students Association to come and help at that day of the event. And I reached out as we're doing this community, and to also reach out that, hey, people, we're doing a community art exhibit, please submit. So to get the word out for that. So we got the word out about the community event. We got the word out to attend the event itself. And the day of the event was amazing. I reached out to some community partners who I met at Creative Paterson, Legal Services, Four Seas of Passaic County, Manavi, which works with domestic violence in South Asian communities, and Habitat for Humanity, because they had wanted to table and reach out to the Bengali community. So they had free tables at the event. We had the food, we had the volunteers coming. We had a Mehndi artist from the community who heard about it and just wanted it for free. Her art was going to be giving free Mehndi to the attendees. And the panel, we had a professor from William Paterson. I mean, the point is, I'm telling you all this is because we also reached out to the mayor's office, and he actually attended the whole event, gave us a proclamation. And so we had the civic participation of the mayor and the mayor's office coming out to support. We had academia come out and talk about the importance of mother language. And when I worked on the exhibit, since I had to come up with an exhibit, I created an entire exhibit the way we wanted to see it, a progressive exhibit. So for example, we had an entire section on Black History Month. So it was February. So the museum had a big Black History Month exhibit. We did not want to co-opt Black History Month. We didn't want to take attention for Black History Month. We wanted to uplift it. So in our own exhibit, we had an entire panel that I made on honoring Black history because of the Black civil rights activism actually helped bring down the racist immigration laws in the 60s that enabled our communities to come here, that big influx for our communities and Asian communities to come here. And that's something the general community doesn't know, and even especially our immigrant communities don't know. And we live in this community with Black folks, and there's just not, our different groups don't always intersect. And so I wanted to make sure that that was on there, and that's something we also honored as we spoke at the event itself. And so we had these exhibit. I also had a professor at MIT who sent me information. I was friends with him, and I'm a resource too, you're all resources, to give me information about Paterson, New Jersey. He's an expert on Bengali communities. And I got census records from the 30s showing the Bengali communities came in the 30s. And the mayor didn't even know that. And I gave it, I'm like, if you want, like, here's a copy of the census. And so, in the end, the event, about 100 people came out. I reached out to press contacts, media press contacts. I met at Creative Paterson. And that's another thing, right? You get to meet these amazing local community media contacts. They came out, there was food, there was performances, we had all the art exhibit. Everybody submitted everything way last minute. I said, submit it on Wednesday, everybody submitted it the day of. But the museum was amazing about putting it up the day of. And that's the thing, with when you have a vision, you roll with the punches, you put your passion out there, and people do meet you, like build it and they will come. But it's so important, I think, what this creative cohort does. Like, there wasn't a money exchange. No one gave us grant money, but it was about people being excited because they wanted to meet our community, and for us to be like, hey, we'll do something, but we need your help. You need to be a partner with us on it. So that was the event. That was